morning, class. My name is Krista today. Now, quick question. Raise your hand if any of you guys have ever been bowling at any time in your life. So pretty much everybody has gone bowling. Okay, I think it's personally cool. Okay, so what are some of the first images that come to your head when you think about bowling? Okay. Whenever I ask this question to most people, they always come back with the whole, like, oh, Kingpin, the Big Lebowski. Well, I mean, as great a movie these are, they're not real representations about the sport. So they don't know the teamwork that goes into this, or the hard work and concentration, or the big wins that you get out of this sport. I am here today to inform you about the actual sport of bowling. And by doing this, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the history, the actual sport today, and how this sport is shaping out to be for the future. Now, many people don't know this, but bowling actually originated from Egypt. There has been many archaeological digs in Egypt, and Sir Finter's Pitier found what resembled primitive bowling figures like balls and pins in a child's tomb. So we can assume that obviously they were bowling at this time. But there's also many conflicting viewpoints to this. A lot of people believe that it was actually founded in Germany and it was monks that had done this. It was actually a religious ritual that they had created. Now, over time, the sport had actually moved out of Egypt and actually went into Europe and then into America. But when it stopped in Europe, it was actually it was a noble sport. A lot of King Edward did it a lot, and so did King Henry VIII. King Edward actually had banned the sport in his kingdom because his knights and everybody were actually doing it as a recreational activity instead of focusing on archery practice for battles. So he actually banned the sport from his country. As bowling started to get to America, it was actually brought in the 17th century by English, German, and Dutch settlers. They had used bowling as a gambling, so many states, Connecticut specifically, had banned bowling due to gambling. But it was more of lawn bowling at the time, and in New York, they actually got the name of Bowling Green from a certain area that people actually did lawn bowling in very frequently. Also, during this time, during the Industrial Revolution, there was a lot of the pin boys, and the whole child labor laws actually came into play a lot at this time. Because figure, a 14, 15-pound ball being thrown at pins with flying balls and flying pins, that's not the suitable environment for children to be working in. So how did we get from this old wooden ball and old wooden lanes to this high-tech sport we have today? Most of that is now due to the USBC, the United States Bowling Congress. This is basically the main governing body of the whole sport. They control everything from tournaments to leagues to scholarship money. They control pretty much everything. So if anything's related with bowling nowadays, it has to go to the USBC. With the USBC, there are many different branches. There's youth bowling, which is depicted here. There is high school bowling, and even collegiate bowling, both men and women's teams. There are a lot of colleges, including ASU, that have bowling teams. However, there is NCAA bowling, but it's only women's bowling. Due to Title IX laws, there can only be an even number of men's and women's sport ratio. But they just added women's cheerleading into the mix, which offsets it. So men's bowling cannot be introduced to the NCAA because of Title IX laws. The PBA is the Professional Bowling Association. They are basically professional bowling. There actually are professional bowlers out there in this world. What they do is basically earn their living through bowling. They go through there's regional tournaments and then like the big PBA tournaments. The regional tournaments, anybody can enter. You don't have to be professional, but a lot of professionals do bowl. It's kind of like warming up to get to the big leagues. Like I said, there are many tournaments. There's the Queen's Tournament, which is the big tournament for the women's. There's the U.S. Open. There's Tournament Champions. There are a lot of big tournaments out there. There's also Team USA. Team USA is basically like our Olympic team, but bowling can't be in the Olympics. It's our national team, or international team, that's comprised of youth boys, youth girls, adult women, and adult men. So They basically go to different tournaments throughout the country and throughout the nation and the world to compete against, countries like England, Australia, Thailand, all like these big countries out there. And there's also the women's Team USA. And they actually just had a recent win in Thailand, and they kind of like kicked everybody's butt, so see Team USA. Okay, so with the future of the sport, everybody's trying to get the Olympics or bowling into the Olympics. But there has been many attempts at this, and they have all failed. In 1988, there was bowling in the Olympics, but it was actually a demonstration sport, so it didn't really count. They were just trying to see if it would go along. The reason why they're not able to have bowling in the Olympics is because it's too difficult. That's why they have said. Since the oil on the lanes change, it's variable. That's why it can't be in the Olympics, because it has to be a set standard. Like when you're running, there can't really be much difference. But when you're bowling, there's like different variables, and there's too many variables. The Olympic Committee has said that they cannot be in the Olympics. So now, I hope you all know whether if you go bowling, for fun with your friends, or you're the first woman to win on the men's circuit, that no matter what, bowling is in all of our lives. Any questions?